A lot of policy changes is when somebody are on their way home and they have no place to go. And they say violent crimes. They want to give you a lot of time when you commit a violent crime, so you won't come out. Well, my first 6 months, I may have saw people that committed nonviolent offenders come in 10 times in 6 months. Whereas when violent crimers, when they do time, they ain't coming back like talking about it. They stay out and they become productive. They do whatever it takes not to come back. Whereas the nonviolent crime offenders, it's all the time. And they go right back into the programs, right back into school, right back into getting jobs that they just left. They ain't even been gone 6 weeks, and they come right back and get those jobs that a violent offender cannot get because they don't give it to us. Nonviolent crime offenders get it first. But when you're doing a lot of time, which is mostly violent crime offenders, you leave out, you don't come back. You come to the table like we do today. Voting rights, something so simple. But of course, people will keep us from voting because we know. Once you're behind a wall, now you know the system. You know who to vote for. You know what not to vote for. You know what not to listen to. And we're a threat because we know. We're not a threat because we are violent crime offenders. We're a threat because we have that knowledge.
You get arrested, you don't know whether you even got a death penalty in your state. You're just like some street kid, And so, but when I realized it was a manslaughter, I was willing to plead guilty to that. And then when they weren't going to go for the 10 years, but then the state agreed to only ask for a 25-year maximum, but with all this probation on the back end of it too. So that's why I'm still on my sentence. I'm still on probation today. And I ended up doing, so where we were, you would go up for parole in a 30-year time. So radical, right? So revolutionary. No matter what your time was, the judge decided that you would do 2 years, 5 years, 15, 30, based on your crime, right? Knowing that a 30-year time, you're going to go up. Obviously, you did the 30-year person did maybe something more serious. That goes without saying. We don't have to change the percentage of when you go for parole. The judge decided that, or the plea bargain decided the big time versus the 1 year, right? And so we would go for a 30-year time with a maximum of 10 years. So if you got the 99 years, you'd still go up in 10. Just to be seen. Now, on the inside, you kind of would know. You're probably going to do about half your time. Our good time would get converted to actual time off your sentence. Like I think every other state in the country. I don't know if that's exactly true, but everyone I'm aware of, the good time that you earn from taking classes and working and stuff comes off. And it's off. It doesn't get converted to parole like it does here. That makes no sense. Trying to be like the feds, right? And so you got people doing like way extra time than they need to be. And it's so out of step. And so this is why like everyone I know out here is like 50 years old, 60, 70 years old. Like where's the guys that got out? Like where's my age bracket? I don't even know anybody that's my age bracket. So it's extremely punitive on like kind of the beginning, middle, and end parts. And converting your work time or your money into good time is just insane. And people don't know that. That needs to be changed and exposed. So there's really like so few incentives for people doing big time to better themselves and to work towards release, because for the most part it's like, I'm going to die in here anyway. All I got to navigate is these 4 walls. And I had this understanding from the time I got the sentence, from the time I realized that, wow, I might get out like before I'm 40 or something. And of course, we've all been 20 or 23. I mean, 40 is like, that's way out there. But those of us that are over 40 are like, hey, it came pretty quick. But so I like learned as much things as I could while I was there, with the idea that I don't know what I'm going to be doing on the outside, but I just want to be as prepared as possible.
And I think a lot of the policy stuff that we put forth, we try to do in a way that's educational. We try to look at like what's a foundational rock we need to shift. Like the voting rights was one of those, and we had some great testimony from people talking about like you treat someone like a pariah in the community and then expect them to do the right thing. Like that doesn't work. And we even had the American Probation Parole Association basically supporting our view of like, you know, you want people to behave properly, you gotta treat them properly. And so I'm always thinking of like, okay, how can I educate the system a little bit, or kind of force educate them? So for instance, like let's create a Truth in Sentencing Act, right? It sounds great, right? But it would be, you would have to, in open court, say all the consequences of your conviction, how much it's gonna cost the state as well, like a fiscal impact statement. So, boom, or whatever, but even before the boom. So you're gonna have, these are the problems you're gonna have with housing, with employment, occupational licensing, voting, like on down the line, and you're gonna, before you plead guilty, you're gonna tell you all these things.
Yeah.
And it's not even just for you. You may know all this stuff, because maybe your daddy or your cousin or whatever went through all this. It's for the prosecutor. It's for the public defender. It's for the judge. So they might say to themselves, wow, 6 months probation actually has more impacts than just me signing my pen. That sounds like a big deal when you lay all these things out. So it's really an educator for the system to realize how brutal these sentences actually are, because they're cradle to grave. Going to college, anything you try to do, have you been convicted of a felony, right? And so everyone wanted to create their own version of punishment. It didn't stop at the judge. It didn't stop at the prison guard that gassed you and beat the heck out of you in the cage. You know, it didn't stop at the parole board at 93, 5, 10 times. It keeps going when you try to do the right thing. And so a Truth in Sentencing Act will be a tool to educate the system. Yeah. We got to take the predatory, hustle, the money out of it.
That's what you got to do.
And, you know, when people ask me a lot, and I've studied several prison systems, you're like, what makes Louisiana so special? And I'm like, well, you can't just look at it like here now, right? It's more like, how do we get, what's the culture? And one has to go all the way back to post-Reconstruction, the convict lease labor system. And then, ironically, you know, they used to have a private company that did the convict lease labor system, but they were brutalizing the people so badly, like nobody even survived their incarceration. They just died, you know? And one person who used to have a plantation had some quote that I read once where he's like, yeah, this is great, because before we used to own the slaves, now we just rent them. You know, and anyone ever rented a car knows the difference. And so then they realized it was so brutal in the 1898 Constitution, they took away the company from doing it, and they said, well, let's have the state do it, thinking that the state would be a little more reasonable. Well, then they just rehired all the people from the company to run the state thing. But in the end, like all those slave labor prison gangs got shopped out to these different sheriffs, and then they built up their little forces, which obviously were based on, I'm going to take money from the state, I'm going to take money from the planter, I'm going to take money from the railroad guy, and so everything was a hustle. I can tell you, when I was in prison, I got $2 a day to iron people's clothes, but I also got soups and stamps and shampoos from everybody else to iron a little bit special. Right, so it's like always a hustle, and this prison system is a hustle, and we need to turn it. If we can take the money out of it and basically say, you're going to get the same salary no matter what the heck happens with this individual, then it'd be more begrudging. You're like, well, I don't want any more people to watch then, if that's the case. You know, I mean, you can have your extra 10 guys, send them home. I don't care. I'll deal with these 90. And if we could ever do that, take the money out, take the incentive out, stop all the predatory price gouging, but we can put in, like our voting rights stuff, our lawsuit and the legislation was partly an educational tool, right? We got media to write about it, we did actions, we brought people out. We have another one Friday at the Louisiana Supreme Court when we file our writ. Yeah. And
but y'all invited to.
Yeah, come to the French Quarter. And you know, next year we can put one in that's designed to take all the price gouging out of the system, and know full well what the opposition may be, and say good, because the media loves a
good story,
you know. And if we get people to tell the stories and how it's actually creating more crime, destabilize the community, less public safety, right? All for what? To line somebody's greedy little pockets, right? And force them to defend it. Oh no, it's good. It's a good policy. It's yeah, it's great. I need 85% of your pay because it teaches you something, right? Force them to answer the question. Put the mic in their face, because secrecy and shrouding and things, you know, it hates the sunlight, and all this evil hates the sunlight. We need to shine upon it. So I think we can put in things that are designed just to shine the light. And that is, I mean, the voting rights thing I think was successful, because it forced people to come out and sort of, you know, get on that moving train and say how they felt about people who are living in the community. And for me, I mean, to hear my daughter say how proud she is of me, she's 9, it's everything. It's everything to me. And that day that we did a housing justice second line, and she said that she wanted to get on the mic, of course, like a 9-year-old said she wants to get on the mic, it's not karaoke, you know. And I was like, what do you want to say? She's like, I want to talk about like discrimination and families. And I was kind of like, said to Robert, our organizer, like, Robert, Kira wants to get on the mic. And she's like, gets into like racial justice stuff. You know, her mom's Dominican, so she talked about being a biracial kid and how, you know, discrimination is bad on everybody in the community, especially the families and the children. And I was just bawling my eyes out, and I just thought to pull out my phone and video at the last minute, you know, and it shows for me that you know, the work that I do is not something where 25 years from now she's going to say, I hate you, you were always working, you care more about those people than me. And that's like my biggest fear, because she still lives in Rhode Island. And every day I wake up and every day I say, why do I live here? And every day when I go to bed, it's like, I live here because I'm really doing important work that needs to be done here. And you know, we're at this amazing space in Louisiana in history that is not present across the nation. You know, people are looking to us. And I've been blessed over the last, you know, 5-10 years to really be working with a lot of people around the country that do this type of work. That's how I met Norris in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I was actually violating my parole in Albuquerque, New Mexico, by just being in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But they're really inspired by what we do. And the greatest thing that we can give other people, I think, in life is hope and inspiration. Because when people have hope and inspiration, it's like there's no bounds to what they can do. And those folks that we still got inside, like, we're always trying to share that back. And you know, and then when they see things like, man, they're all up on your case for going to college? For going to college. Man, college. They're like, why do I want to get out there? You know? What if I get an upstanding job? They're going to come, like, torch me down and stuff? And so, like, we're always trying to say, like, oh, man, it's getting better. Like, come on, you can do it. And we need to continue that work. And we're really on the verge of, like, some real cultural breakthroughs. We're not going to do this one little policy at a time. You know, there's, you know, if I move the straw like this with one little policy, you know, I moved it, what, an inch? But if I move the whole cup, that straw came with, and so did everything else in the cup. You know, we need like glacial shifts of movement. We need cultural change. And things like voting rights, when we talk about housing, we talk about employment, we talk about big, huge things like race and you know, overall discrimination things, that's when we really start to open up our hearts. I don't want to just work on one little policy. I want to work on things in the context of something way bigger.